We will have Vishal, uh, Chawla. Is that how you pronounce it? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm sure not.
Chawla.
Sure.
You're pretty close. Pretty
And
close.
you brought a guest to help you out, correct?
That's right. Katie is gonna be there. She's gonna present and also present with me.
All right. So I saw Vishal at the Joint Metro New York conference, and I knew that we had to have him as a speaker at our event. So without further ado, go ahead, Vishal. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Ken. I'll start with something. It's one. Really appreciate how you are really building this community. We I've spoken to multiple ISC Square chapters. Katie and I were texting like this is the most social, most engaged chapter we have seen so far, and we have seen pretty much all the way from the West Coast, a bit south, north, east. We have gone through the whole thing. So I think you guys are doing awesome. It's the best way to build a community where which build the trust, doing all these social activity along with everything else, and bringing these kind of talk like Marquetta presented um, on this whole Black Girls
Black
Hack.
Girls Hack is a
Yeah.
Yes, no, this is awesome. So congratulations to you guys. You guys are doing awesome. Better than at least I have seen anything so far. If I find something, I'll let Ken know, but I have serious doubt I'm gonna find anything that I really do. So, without much further ado, I've got Katie Riley with me, and we both are part of, I'm with Blue Ocean, founder and CEO, started about 2 years ago. And we'll talk a little bit more about the firm toward the end of the conversation. Really, the focus of the talk today is what exactly like it says, thinking like a cyber criminal to protect your business in the age of digital heist. And what we're going to do is we are going to really focus on I'm assuming some geek out would have figured out what is Ocean 1011, but it is Ocean 11. If you know Ocean 11 movie, it is just a binary for it. And the idea was we actually spent a lot of time researching this, that there's so much going on from a cyber perspective, but why the criminal keeps winning. And we said let's look at something which is pretty interesting framework. So we use Ocean 11 as a movie as our framework to see how they won, and we use that framework to analyze bunch of couple of use cases in terms of recent breaches, and then we talk about the framework, how to use that framework really to start protecting within your enterprise. So we'll talk more about it. Please drop your question in the chat. I'm assuming Ken, if we have time, would love to take questions. If not, if you shoot me question, we can follow up too, whichever works good for you guys.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. So let me dive straight in. If it's an interesting statistics, you're gonna see a good amount of material, and I'll try to go fast because I know we got Michael also. She's gonna present, so I'm gonna keep it a little bit pace. But ask question, put in the chat. I want to keep it interactive as much as possible. So so one thing we were as we were analyzing it, we said, okay, if the word is growing and everything is changing. So which would be we got the biggest economy, and we said which is going to be the third biggest economy. So Katie, if we go to the next slide, which are the economies in the world? And we said, hey, when you look at it today, U.S. is number one, China is number two, and cybercrime is number three. And the fastest growing economy, which sounds really crappy and bad, but yes, it is the fastest growing economy in the world, and growing faster than we can control it. It was funny. I was a speaker at CES on a cyber talent, and I looked at the whole CES and so many technologies and so much everything. So I was at a dinner session where we had the president of CES, the CTA, which they call it the association, and I was talking to him, and I said, interestingly, only thing which I did not see at the CES is the topic of cyber, which is the only thing which can stop all this new innovation and technologies and everything we are seeing. So how we find that balance and bring those two things together. And that's what criminal is taking advantage of. That we they are seeing the pace of technology innovation, the transformation, and with that pace, every time you launch something new like the AI, they are the first one to use it. That's why they are ahead of the game. So we said, okay, let's look at it. If the cybercrime is increasing, where the company stands. So we look at some of the statistics. This is not ours. This is industry data. You can look it up. And if you need some links, shoot a note to me or Katie, and we can provide you. But what we found that over last 4 years, this is since COVID, industry has been increasing the spend of cyber, and they have that spend has increased all across the industry approximately by 50%. It may look like a huge number, but on the other side, when you look at amount of cyber crime, that has increased by over 100%. Now that sounds like if you're a business person, you're like, I'm investing more in cyber, and the impact of cybercrime and the cyber attack is increasing. What's going on? And that exactly is the question we started answering through our research. What is going on? What exactly is different? We have the security we do, like, oh, identify, detect, protect. We got all these controls we keep implementing. Then why we are failing this battle so fast? Miss, I was at a recent meeting, and there was this. I was doing a podcast with someone, and this guy actually asked a question, which is funny. He has been a CEO himself for a couple of companies. That all I know about cyber is since I started hearing, every year, only thing I hear is it gets worse and worse, and why that is going on. So we said let's go to the our criminal framework. So we said let's listen to some of the criminals. So we firstly went to Frank Abigail Jr. You guys all know Catch Me If You Can. And this was interesting. He said, if you want to beat the criminal, then you got to think like one. And if you're not, you are not going to be able to beat like a criminal. So that was the foundation where he started from. I'll leave the next quote for you guys. Miss, it's like with the amount of technology we have, instead of $2.5 million, he would have stolen $200 million when he was 16-year old, which also speaks to the amount of tech we are trusting to run our lives and manage our lives and make it efficient and fastest is also the thing which is going to cause us the biggest harm. And that's exactly how it was looking. So we said, okay, let's take Frank's advice and we are going to think like a criminal. So let's understand how criminals operate. So we went to our friends Ocean 11. I'm sure most of you have watched it. If you have not, you are missing one of the really awesome movies. So you should put that on your movie list for tonight or this weekend. We had some really good looking smart people. We had Tess, we got the Rusty and the Ocean. And when you look at all these guys, what was really interesting was a couple of things. They are always very strategic. We'll talk about that. The second thing, they focused on high value target. So when you go back to your Ocean 11 movie, they were not just going after, hey, tonight let's go after the casino and we'll pick up whatever change we get. No, no, they go after high value target, and they evade defenses. They act like a team of expert. Think about it. Why it was called Ocean 11? Because they were 11 people, each with a unique skill set to make the heist work. That's what we are seeing with our criminals too. Our criminals like ransomware as a service and some of those Lockbit and others, they are criminal organizations. They have their HR department, they do recruitment, they have compensation, and people come in and do that all day long and they go home. If you want to watch more about this, there's a 60-minute documentary a few months ago. You should watch it. They talk about the whole of this very structured criminal operations. Last thing, they move with speed and time. So I want you to remember these five attributes, and we'll keep coming back to it. They are strategic, high value target, evade defenses, team of experts, speed and timing. So we said, okay, so let's see what an Ocean 11 attack looks like. So we dived into the attack, and guess what? Here's something we mapped out. Actually, we did not. Someone did, and I will give that credit to whoever the Charles Kunkan is. We just found it as we were researching to more, and we found this thing, and we said, "Wow, someone did that whole progression." An interesting part, if you look at it, it is very much structured across those five parameters I mentioned. Uh, when you look at it, they were very strategic. They have the support. If you remember Tess, she's the one who is helping them from step number one, understanding the target, learning about the business of casino, how the money moves, where money is, what the processes are, how it gets collected from different tables, how it gets into the wall, everything she taught. So everything from number three and inside is all internal, where Tess was helping them think through. And then after that, everything is outside, where they get to the initial entry, they evade detection, they seize the crown jewels, and the crown jewels, and we'll talk about it, and they walk off with the money and notoriety. So they are so good always in evading the defenses that they walk it off. So we said, is this model really, if we take this model, let's apply to some of the recent breaches and see how it holds water. So we went to our first one, which is Clorox. Nothing crazy provocative. Means you guys are in New Jersey, New York, with no financial services, no healthcare, just a company which makes bleach, right? And you'll think like, why the hell someone will go after this kind of a company? They make bleach, and what's the big deal? It's not the company people should go after. What's going to happen? But they did go after Clorox, and guess what they did? And Clorox was actually structured like a very secure company. There's a list which you can Google on Forbes, America's most cyber secure companies. They were number 65 on the list, and number one is the industrial company on the list. So one thing I forgot to mention, guys, we're going to touch on some of these use cases. I know if you work or anyone on these companies, I'm sure worked hard, struggled hard, and they had to deal with it. So we're not trying to undermine that. We're just using them as a use case to look at our research and see what could have been done different. Okay. So, but Clorox was number 65. Personally, again, my personal opinion, don't want to be on this list, but they are on the list, and there are a lot of companies on this list, but they were number one. And when you go through it, we said, so why they were number one? What is the kind of metrics with which name them number one? And the number one metrics was, this was from a company security scorecard. I'm sure you guys must have dealt with it. If not, if you're CISO, you have dealt with it because their model is a little bit interesting. But they ranked Clorox based on the security of their website and the outside external cybersecurity infrastructure. Now, if you look at Clorox, what kind of company it is? Oh, it runs factories, it is producing chemicals, it is selling home chemical supplies, got logistics, it's got all that operation. It's got the whole business to run. And what they ranked the whole company on is the website. That's not their business. No one is going to a website to buy Clorox product, and the outside external structure. The challenge is because a lot of security keeps, and this was the first, that the criminals are strategic, and what they are able to evade defenses, because a lot of security is still being done more like a perimeter versus thinking that is just a breach to get in through the perimeter. The attack starts once you're inside, like we saw in the Ocean 11. How you get inside is when the attack start. Attack does not start with how you get in. So this was security of just a basic breach parameter, not really putting the posture. So Clorox gets hacked. They shared with SEC in August 2023 that, hey, we had a breach, and we had they disrupted the company's business operation. Clorox had invested really good amount of money in OT security, a lot of other endpoint, but criminals went after their own supply chain internal system. And this is how smart they were. Again, they were strategic. They looked at all kind of stuff, and they said, what I can go after, like I said, remove the breach from an attack, what I can go for cyber attack which will hurt the company most. So they took down the purchase order system. What happens with purchase order system is they cannot take orders. No orders are coming in. They are manually taking orders from Walmarts and Targets and Costco. And what happens with it? The orders had to be manually processed. If orders drive the supply chain. So Behind the purchase order system, they knew criminals. It has got a supply chain system. If there are not enough orders, supply chain system won't get the data. If that doesn't get the data, the factories will shut down. So you don't have to go shut down thousands of OT devices in a factory to hurt. You just shut down the purchase order system and that shuts down the factory. Very similar to colonial pipeline kind of thinking. Again, they are strategic. They knew what they're going after. They knew what is the high value target, and they knew how to evade defenses. Clorox had to go manual. The operation slowed down. They had to go figure out what they're going to do. Their stock took a nosedive pretty significantly. They had to call it, it's a material incident. You all have seen the new cyber rule. So this was the one of those which really called themselves out as a material incident. They predicted loss of 20 to 23, 28% in net sales. They restated the earnings, and they had to, the attack will be financially material to them. And guess what? When you say what happens when you declare a material incident, it's not about declaring, but when it is material, that $57 million in just a remediation cost. This does not include the ransom, whatever they paid. Their net sales decreased by $500 million. Think about it. So criminals knew I am going after a high value asset target. They don't go after just wasting my time. Let me get a couple of dollars here and there. No, no, no. They were going after high value targets. The pain is worth the juice, and Clorox will be ready to pay. Think about, for Clorox, it took them 9 months to get back to the same stage of operation where they were 9 months. And that is where the criminals walk away, they get their things done, and they move on. And now the companies are suffering, and they can do whatever they want to do. So that's exactly, if you go back to our Ocean 11, they were strategic. They moved with the precision. They knew what the high value targets are. They knew how to evade the defenses, and they walked away with what exactly they need by hurting the company exactly where it hurts them the most. We're going to talk a next one. I'm going to turn it to Katie, and she's going to talk another interesting one incident.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's the SEC, after the SEC came out with their rule on cyber risk management and governance and material incident response, their Twitter was actually breached in January of 2024, where someone was able to breach their Twitter and post that Bitcoin was accepted as ETFs. And this tweet got 30 million views, or 3 million views in 30 minutes. And also major news outlets were starting to report on this. And it's interesting because, the SEC, there's, data I'm sure everyone would love to see on their servers internally. But I'm sure a lot of the systems are air gapped tightly. I'm sure that data is worth a lot of money, but the criminals know that's, probably nearly impossible or very difficult to get. But where we consider high value asset here is the SEC's, external voice. They have so much power on the market and the share, just, with what they post as the truth in the public. So, for someone with such a strong influence like the SEC, their social media becomes a critical asset for them. And as we see, this isn't always protected like a critical asset. This Twitter account was actually compromised, using SIM swapping. It's because the account was using 2FA, SMS 2FA, rather than a more secure method like a FIDO key or an authentication app. And actually, I think it had been disabled that previous summer, by some risk exemption by the staff member who was running the Twitter account. So, this is just showing that the criminals took the time to understand who ran the Twitter account, took the time to do the SIM swapping and evade the 2FA. And what they got in turn, well, I don't think there's any attribution publicly posted for this attack. There was over $2 billion of Bitcoin was sent over exchanges during this time, and there was 750 million exchanged at a loss. And moved the market cap by $50 billion within 15 minutes. And we saw Bitcoin spike up $3,000 and back down. So the criminals were pretty smart here. They saw their opportunity to make a lot of cash quick in kind of like a heist-like way. without having to do a ton of work and, try to breach the perimeter or, go for some of the SEC's other assets that might have been more difficult and less valuable to them. I'm sure they came away with a good paycheck here. But I will pass this back off to Vishal to go through one more example.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, this was very interesting. Like Katie said, when I think about they could have done like this war happened and we got to shut down the stock market in 15 minutes. For 30 minutes, if that news was there, how much of crash they could cause. And again, they were strategic and targeted because they knew the person within the whole SEC who can get to the Twitter handle or X handle and post it without getting anyone approval. Again, the break of they knew how the process works, they knew how the operation works, who is the target, very strategic and everything focused. We're going to touch on the third one, the last one. This is the Typhoon cyber attack. We have been hearing about it over the last few months, a lot of noise in the Congress and everything. But this began in 2019 by hackers embedding for year and testing access periodically. It means they were trying to get after the ports, the power grid, the utilities, water utilities, all over the place, and then telecommunication attack as part of it, targeting companies like Verizon and everyone. So the question was, what exactly different? How did they get in? And it was interesting. The way they got in was using the devices routers from Fortinet and Cisco. And if you go back and research it, those routers were set up for with a backdoor on the request of FBI long time ago, because some of these are so legacy routers that they were even lacking any basic controls. But those backdoor were set up so if some issues were there, FBI or someone can get in or do something about it. Criminals use those exactly the access points to get in, and and then what they did, the first thing they do is they evade defenses. Remember, they deleted all the audit log, and once they deleted all the audit log, then no one knows what's going on. Once the detection is evaded, the second thing they did was, at least in this case, they were in there. If you go to the next one, Katie, they were in there for 6 to 18 months. Think about, guys, you all are security professional. We all are. If a criminal is in the company for 6 months to 18 months, and over 18 months, they will log in. They will see if my access still exists. Am I all good? All my accounts are working, and then they sit inside, and as per the latest report, they kept looking at the behavior of what is happening, which data are growing, which applications are getting used most. So they basically were looking for the right target to go after. They were focused on learning, zeroing in onto a target. Now, luckily, that didn't happen. Finally, someone figured out, hey, we got people there for 18 months, but the breach was already there, which was intended to shut down all the public utilities and public transports. So if you go to the next one, yeah, public utilities, electricity, water, and so really, if you look at it, hackers are shifting from being just a basic criminal to disrupt businesses. So now the question you should be asking, and we asked in our research within our team, and what you may want to ask is, okay, if I am a cybersecurity person and I have a cybersecurity program, how do I know which business process has what kind of exposure? So if you are a bank, you have account management process, loan origination process, so you got to be thinking like that. And that's what exactly is the shift which is happening. So again, looking at that, what happened in the movie Ocean 11 was they understood the business model. They went for the targeted night when it was $150 million. They were very targeted. They knew the control in place. They went for the vault for the maximum impact and walked away with the vault. And if you take the same approach what criminals are using now, the criminals, they enter with common vectors like phishing and malware and stuff like that. uh, they sit quietly. If you go to the next one, Katie, please. They sit quietly and learn. And interestingly, the average breach detection time is about 118 days. And if this was the situation, if you are a SaaS based company or if you have a SaaS application, the average detection time is 273 days. 273 days criminals are sitting in, or 118 days. So what they do is they're not sitting there twiddling their thumb. What they're doing is they are really trying to understand how your business operates, what exactly I can go after, and that is what their impact. They figure out the crown jewels, and that's what they go after. And interestingly, we always thought data is, and data still is in some cases, but this was an interesting data point, so we wanted to share, like the Ticketmaster, they lost about 560 million record, and the ransom request was about 440,000, fraction of a penny for record. So I'm sorry to say that it's disappointing, but that all our records are not that value to them. What is value to them is critical business process. And here is the interest, and those processes are like customer order management system, EHR system, all those application, those are critical for them. That's what they go after. So that's what, if you want to walk away with, is go back and look at with your security program and say, can I go to the business and say which of the processes are how good they are secured end to end, not somewhere in between? And that's what they're going after. And here's some interesting data. This is coming from IBM's Data Breach Report 2024. 70% of organizations experience a significant or very, very significant disruption to business as a result of breach. I was so happy that IBM actually differentiated. We are very focused on breach on the newspaper item. Oh, this breach happened because they did not have MFA. That is okay, but that is not the real problem, guys. We know, we have heard the term, as all of us are security professional. It's not question of if, but versus when that will happen. But what changed was, what is changing is they are going after business disruption. They understand which business process. Just 1 second on that one, Katie. And the second stat, pretty interesting, was only 12% of organization which had those seven out of that organization were able to fully recover. Go back, if you remember, Clorox, 9 months. Change Healthcare, 9 months later, still they are not even completely recovered completely. So that is what they do. So if you think like a criminal, criminals understand that, which process to go after. Second thing they understand is what will be the impact of the disruption if they go after. So if you go to the next one now, Katie, please. Thank you. So what will be the attack impact of disruption? They understand financial, they understand regulatory, they understand reputational, they understand operational. So the question is, you need to be asking is, if you are in a bank and your loan origination system goes down, do you understand the financial impact, operational impact, regulatory impact, reputational impact, and do you know how secure it is? And if you don't, that's exactly what criminals are banking on, and that's exactly how they are attacking. So if you start thinking, let's turn to the solution side. First question you need to be asking is my organization ready for an Ocean 1011 attack? Or you're going to be running and closing all these devices, because criminals are not doing that. They know where I need to go. Like we discussed, they're very strategic, very targeted. That's how they're moving. So if you want to start more like Ocean 1011, instead of doing this, what you should be doing is start learning about what is the worth of our business. We have been meetings. I was sitting with one meeting, and it was funny. We talked to the business. They said, "Hey, if this happens for a month, we will have $1 billion." And we were sitting with someone in the discussion, and one of the security person like, "Oh no, no, that is the wrong data. We don't even. I mean, that sounds like the whole revenue of the company." No, the company's revenue actually was $18 billion company. So the idea is we need to get into the detail about the business. What is the worth of the business? What exactly the business does? The second thing we need to understand is how the business operates or make money. What exactly business, what is the operational process to make money? How we create money within our business? What is the revenue generation model we have? What is the business model we have? What stuff if you're selling something, you are enabling something, you're servicing, what exactly we have to operate to make money? Because that's exactly what criminals are looking for in terms of crown jewel. And once they figure that out, the next thing you want to figure out is what are the critical money making now process and business activities. Is it if you're a bank, loan origination? If you're a manufacturing company, is it the supply chain? It is the sales system, like in case of Clorox. Or if you're a financial company, is it your data or analytics or reporting back to the customer? And once you figure all that out, then because that will tell you is what will happen when they go down. You need to understand is remember that discuss. Now the question is what will happen when they go down? Where we believe the model has to shift is yes, we need to do tabletop, which is post breach, but that is too late. Already should have the fan, the damage is done, and now we are just looking at it, which is fine. We need to do it. We believe the scenario modeling in the tabletop needs to shift in a proactive fashion if we want to stop the disruptions we are seeing. So I'm gonna and to so you have to start with understanding the business, what exactly the business is, and how do you protect it. The challenge is you cannot do this by yourself. You need to bring all the people into one single strategic table. So CFO can tell you what is the exposure you can handle, what is the tolerance of the organization, what processes are critical for from business can tell you, and legal can. We need to turn it into a strategic discussion because as a security practitioner, if we are sitting in a silo, then these guys are not part of the journey. They have the knowledge of the business more than, not necessarily I'm saying all the time, but they have the real knowledge of the business. They know the CFO, and we have seen it in our discussion, in our work with clients. You go to the CFO or someone within their office, and they tell you, hey, you want to know material? If it is this many millions, it is material. And then you can do a back of a napkin calculation, and you know what it looks like. So you got to have that conversation to start with. Once you have figured out, as I was talking about, then you have to go back and say, what are the scenarios from criminal lens, how they will try to bring things down and make money. So I'm going to have Katie walk through that scenario modeling versus the tabletop in the end. This is scenario modeling to be proactive, so you know how criminal thinks, how they operate, and you can then build your plan to protect your companies. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I'll go ahead, and I'm sure a lot of you have sat in on tabletops before, and typically, in a tabletop, we're starting with clicking on a phishing link, getting into a server, deploying ransomware, calling the feds, and then, doing all the recovery and cleanup in the end. And so what we're doing is kind of flipping this exercise in reverse and reverse engineering it, because as Ken was saying, you guys are planning a tabletop with a lot of lawyers in the end, and in my personal experience, usually the lawyers and the other executives, the finance executives, and the operations executives, their eyes really light up at the end when we start talking about the impact. So we're starting there when we're thinking of risk scenario planning, and we can start thinking of it from different industry verticals. One very direct vertical is supply chain. We've worked with some clients, and supply chain is a really nice place to do this because there is a pretty clear process hierarchy. We call them, they have pretty clear choke points. Uh, and in the case of one client, they had an order management system, and if that stopped, it halted everything below it. It halted their inventory systems, their warehouse, their transportation management, and all their analytics. And so that was one big point. But after talking to them, we also realized that they had a pricing system, because for a large majority of their clients, they had to stay in pricing compliance. So if that pricing system went down, they also couldn't conduct any sales. So we found two, major gaps where they could start securing. And we see that too. We see that in Clorox. Another interesting example is CDK Global. They're a software provider for a lot of the car dealerships. That they had ransomware take over their software, and car dealerships around the country weren't able to complete sales for, I think, days or weeks at a time, and it actually ended up affecting the nation's GDP by a small amount because there was no car sales for this extended period of time. It'll adjust back, obviously, but the company takes a big hit there. But finding out where you're distributing your services from is a really great place to start in the supply chain. Another place is healthcare scenarios. Again, these are criminals. They lack empathy. They don't really care who they're hurting as long as they're making money. So we've seen this in a lot of hospital systems lately. Criminals actually taking down systems like electronic health record systems or other systems that help admit patients into the hospital. Rather than trying to steal the data, they just shut them down. Ambulances are being diverted. People are being turned away and sent to other hospitals. And this is a pretty big risk, not only from the operational stance for the patients within the hospital, but also there's a lot of regulatory and lawsuits that follow suit with these kind of processes. So not only understanding in a healthcare organization how you're protecting your PHI, but how are you protecting your operations when you have critical care going on in those facilities. And lastly, we'll think about financial services. The most obvious, when you're thinking of financial service, you're thinking of a bank robber. You would think immediately you want to go and take money out of all the customers' accounts, but that's a lot of work and there's quicker ways to make money. When we're thinking in some of these cases, like in the case I think of Fidelity National Financial, there were some loan processing systems that got taken down, I believe, and customers were unable to pay their mortgages for 3 weeks. In the case of ICBC, they took down their US Treasury system and they halted US Treasury trades. I think they had to take a pretty sizable loan from BNY Mellon, if I'm remembering correctly there. But the criminals, just in summation, the criminals realized, it's a lot of work and effort to individually try to steal funds and commit fraud at the customer level or the, cash level there. And, it's a lot quicker way to make cash, to halt a major flow of cash within the business that's going to be, a big liquidity risk for these companies. And so capitalizing on those major process flows rather than individual accounts that hold the cash. So again, a new way to start kind of thinking about where we're looking at in financial institutions. And financial institutions, of course, have a lot of regulatory impact when it comes to their consequences. So this is again the kind of the example that we're thinking about when we were talking about our supply chain client. Their financial impact was their direct revenue, but we also see a tail risk with the regulatory and reputational, their operational risk. And then here you can kind of see they have the direct financial and the regulatory and operational, and oftentimes with financial firms, we flip it. So I'll pass it back to Vishal to close us out.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so I think once you do the scenario modeling, then you want to understand is, okay, I understand these are the scenario, we understand, so think about, we understand the process, we understand the scenario. Now you want to understand is how you vulnerable are your critical asset. Based on all the research and analysis, the only way you can slow down the hacker is making it difficult for them to get into to take down the asset. That is the only thing you can do. So you got to start shifting to an asset-centric program and say, if I take a process end to end, it has got 10 application, are all 10 equally protected? And how you do that is, I'm going to try to pace up a little bit. So feel free to otherwise reach me after that if you guys have question. But you want to firstly start with understanding what assets make up that business process. Or you got sales system, inventory management, what all systems are there. You want to understand end to end, because the problem is from a criminal standpoint, they also sit there for 100 days to understand, and they look for the weakest target within that process to take it down. And once they, and the best way to do it, at least what we use with our clients, is using something like a MITRE attack framework, because it gives you attack pattern by industry you can actually apply. So we build a lot of database and sources, but when you look at those MITRE attack framework, you see all the layers which you need to control. And depending on the criticality of the process, you can go up to 4 or 5, but these are how the layers of how the attack pattern works. Very similar to other cyber kill chain concept, but this is MITREs. If you look at these and use this, then you can go back and look at your asset and say, am I protected for number one? Do I have controls for 2, 3, 4? And that will tell you whether you have a defense in depth model. So if you go to the next one, that's exactly what you do, is taking those MITRE TTPs, looking at the control and say, do I have all the control for last everything TTPs wise? Is it continuously monitored, disabled, everything? So if you go to the next one, this is where everything gets collapsed. You understand the risk to the process, you understand the residual risk, and where the appetite. And this is where you are able to have a good conversation with the client to say, I'm sorry, within your company to say, where I need to make investment to reduce the risk. And now it is a business centric view of the security, which is what the criminals do. So, in closing, almost what you need to do is use the criminal knowledge to proactively plan for the future. And in summary, what are the 7 steps you can do? If you go to the next one, know what your business cares about, understand how it operates, conduct the analysis, identify asset, build and implement layer defenses, and go for it. So with that, I'm gonna wrap it up. So just quickly, if you go to 47, we are Blue Ocean Cyber. Go to the next one, and we are a firm where we have a product. That's what we do, Risk GPS, which exactly we build on this research to enable exactly this whole analysis and modeling and design and board reporting for the client. And the second thing we focus on really is SaaS security end to end. That's another talk we do sometime is how to secure your whole SaaS ecosystem. So hopefully, Ken, I try to move as fast as I can. Feel free to reach out to me on a LinkedIn or you can sign up for our newsletter.
No, you did great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you
Not a
getting that
problem.
all in. And it's always good to mix technical presentations with the business side of cybersecurity because both are important, and some would even argue that your side is even more important than the technical side because if you don't understand the business, how can you protect it?
Absolutely. If you don't, I like that. And that's what I use the statement. If you don't know how it operates, how you protect it, and otherwise, we are just investing a lot and not getting the return. So, but for everyone, I know we got a short of time. Feel free to reach out if you have questions, you have feedback, you have anything. Reach out to me and Katie, and you have our contact information. And happy to have a dialogue further with you.
Thank you both. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.